Antelope Freeway 1 mile. Antelope Freeway 1/2 mile. Antelope Freeway 1/4 mile. Antelope Freeway 1/8 mile. Antelope Freeway 1/16 mile. Antelope Freeway 1/32 mile. Antelope Freeway 1/64 mile. Antelope Freeway 1/128 mile. Antelope Freeway 1/256 mile. Antelope Freeway 1/512 mile. We've just passed Antelope Freeway. This is Dale Matthews. I talked a while back with my friend Liz Irish. Let me lay the groundwork here. Let's suppose that you were going to run for office, or you had a friend, a good friend that was going to run for office, or someone that you back for the idea of running for office. And the county government decided that they didn't like that candidate or what your candidate is saying. And so the county government convenes a press conference in the official building inside the boardroom of the county commissioner's office, and they array 5 elected officials from your own government, using your government taxpayers' money to set this up, and have a press conference to say bad things about you as a candidate or your friend as a candidate. How do you feel about that in general?
Well, on the surface, I'm appalled by it. And when you say county officials, give me an example of who the county officials were.
Right. One of them was Dave Toller, county commissioner. One of them was Gilbertson, county sheriff. Another one was John Harrelson, county treasurer. Another one was the county assessor. And another one was the county legal counsel. All 5 of these fellows sitting up there together, county legal counsel, to say bad things about 2 of the candidates for county commissioner, and one of them won.
What were they saying? I mean, what were they so upset about that they felt like they needed to even hold this press conference?
Before we get to that, because there are a lot of reasons why they might have been upset. My question to you still is, oh, good. I get to badger you to your answer. I don't often get that with the county commissioners. How do you feel about the idea that you've been paying tax money, and then 5 of your elected officials decide that they're going to set up a press conference, invite all the press in the courthouse, and then array themselves up there, the 5 of them side by side, from the sheriff, head law enforcement official, to legal counsel, head legal person, and bash you as a candidate? Do you like that idea? Is that what our county commissioners or what our county government should be doing?
I absolutely do not like that. I've never heard of anything like that happening in my life. I'm surprised that they had the guts to do something like that. Although, as we go along in this whole process, it seems that everybody gets to say and do what they want and never really have to answer a question or address citizens' questions, which just falls right along with it. Let's just do what we want. It's the Wild West. I am appalled, and I think it's a misuse of the taxpayers' money. I don't think any public building or any public official should convene in a manner such as a group of individuals that work for the county in front of the press to bash any potential candidates. Now, usually what that indicates to me is they have something to be afraid of. They're locking arms, they're going out in front, and they're attacking because they feel like they need to. Whoever they were running against must have struck a chord.
Well, in this case, none of these people were running. However, the sheriff did have a dog in the fight in that there was a ballot measure that he wanted passed.
Okay.
What precipitated this is there was a full-page ad in the Courier, and it was taken out by 2 candidates, Sandy Casanelli and Jack Allen Brown, and they were using an example of a town in Illinois, saying that, look, here was this town that decided to roll back taxes, and it was working for them, and can we learn any lessons from them?
Okay.
And the point made mainly by Commissioner Toller and by the treasurer is there's absolutely nothing we can learn from this town. Nothing. There's nothing that's transferable. 1, it's in another state. And 2, it's a completely different situation. Why? That's a town and this is a county. And well, there's really nothing we can learn. And then they also pointed out that anything that these candidates had said along those lines of how we can spend taxpayers' money would just be confusing the public, and the public might not vote for certain things like this sheriff's levy. And so this is, I believe, how the sheriff got involved in it is, once you confuse people with the facts that you think are wrong, why, my gosh, who knows how they can vote?
I'm laughing, and I'm smiling huge, because talk about people who confuse people with facts that are wrong. That's they should know. It takes one to know one, right? The other thing is this county has been doing that for a lot of years. They've been rolling back the taxes because they don't like how the government's been run, and they feel like it's the only way that they could stand up. And so clearly they were threatened because they weren't going to get their levy passed. They felt like they weren't going to get the money that the sheriff wanted.
Well, imagine what would happen if both of those candidates got in. As a matter of fact, one of them did get in. I realize we haven't talked yet about the contents of the press conference and who said what. But one of the results was Sandy Casanelli got voted in with, I think that's about 1 3/4% over Harry Mackin. And Jack Allen Brown lost by about 1 1/4%. I think these numbers are right, to Dwight Ellis. Now, these are brand new people who are running for these offices. And my point to Jack Brown was, Jack, you really should protest about this. He never did. I wish he had a little bit more push behind him. If you run a press conference that's just before an election, this was October 22nd, with the first part of November being the end of the election period, and people were voting during this time. If you run a press conference and you can't affect 1% of the vote, don't have the press conference. I think that it's very likely that this press conference was the final thing that did end Jack Brown. And it was dutifully reported, just exactly the way it was presented by the Daily Courier, without checking in, without talking. It went straight from this press conference right to the front page, or whatever page it was on in the Daily Courier, which is that's Josephine County also. Okay.
So when they're sitting at the press conference, how far away was this press conference from a voting station?
That's a really interesting question. Over by the county clerk's office is a polling station, and it's where you drop your envelope. This was in the same building, which automatically puts it into a certain category. It was also within 100 feet of that, and there are rules about doing electioneering, trying to influence the way that people should vote within 100 feet. And in fact, it's so strong that you can't hand out materials, election materials, urging people to vote one way or another on the front steps of the courthouse. You actually, I think, have to be across the street if you draw a circle around that polling station. But this was within 100 feet. Now, there were a couple people who tried to say, oh no, it's much further than 100 feet, but no, that's not right, because the door that I walked through and a couple other people walked through was well within 100 feet. And yes, it's true that if you go way down to the end of the hall and turn around 180 degrees and come all the way back, it's more than 100 feet. But truthfully now, this was definitely within 100 feet of a polling station, which was what I thought was one of the things that made this an illegal press conference. Here are statements made by Josephine County officials during the official investigation by the Oregon Secretary of State. This is Commissioner Dave Toller. I don't recall mentioning any candidates. And this is from Gil Gilbertson, the sheriff. I personally do not recall discussing a candidate. And here's John Harrelson. I do not recall speaking or hearing the name of any candidate or ballot measure. And then here's Gil Gilbertson one more time. It was never my intention or desire to address a ballot measure, nor do I believe I did. So they're all saying pretty much the same thing. This was a press conference about an ad that was in the newspaper with pictures of candidates, with the candidates who are running for office, and these fellows are saying, No candidates were referenced during this press conference.
They're saying they physically didn't say it. However, they did hold up the newspaper and show the pictures of the candidates.
Dave Toller did that right afterwards. Sometimes I find with Dave that his immediate response is tell you a quick thing that's not true, and then later on think about it a little bit more. The first thing he said when it was mentioned to him that he held up the newspaper is he said, "I never did that." And it's got pictures of the candidates. And it wasn't a real quick, oh, here's the newspaper, put it. It was very deliberate, held up very slowly in front. You can see it on the camera. And it was, but even more important than that, now, this is a press conference. It's a press conference. So what would you imagine would happen at a press conference? What's one of the things that would be handed out on paper to the press at a press conference? A press release.
That's right. Anything that they're going to talk about.
Right. And so what was the official written press release? Here it is, press conference called by County Commissioner Dave Toller and Sheriff Gil Gilbertson. Okay, just before I talk about this. I like Law and Order too.
Mm-hmm. Great show.
And I like Law and Order in our county.
Okay, good.
And I know there are a number of people who will back the sheriff, maybe by character, certainly because they're interested in having the county be protected.
Right.
I personally feel that the most important thing that any government can do is to keep us safe.
Absolutely.
And I don't like pulling back the amount of money. I voted for this ballot measure. A lot of people don't know that, so now I'm out. I voted for this ballot measure. I want the police, our county sheriff, to have as much money as they need to keep us safe. On the other hand, it's not okay with me even if you like somebody, if they tell stories, if they tell things that are untrue. It's certainly not okay with me if our head law enforcement official tells something which is completely untrue to the Secretary of State's office.
Well, that's really revealing about somebody's true human nature. I really think, regardless of what your position is or what you did, the best bet is always to be truthful. I mean, because that's going to go with you everywhere. We all want to feel like the sheriff is going to always be truthful.
I think we must insist on it.
Absolutely.
Because we give the sheriff or anyone in law enforcement a lot of power. And if we're going to do that, we need to be sure. And some people could say, well, it's just one thing. Actually, it happened twice. Here's the thing. I'll talk about the press release and then I'll talk about the video. In the press release, now keep in mind now, everybody's sitting up there saying, well, no candidates were referenced. Here's the press release. The title of the press release is Misinformation from Commissioner Candidates Confusing Public. So what they're saying basically is misinformation, false statements
Right.
from candidates for office
Right.
are confusing the public. Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, people could get confused by falsehoods. This is the official press release. There's only one press release. And the first sentence says, while we believe county commissioner candidates Jack Brown and Sandy Casanelli intentions, it's not good English, intentions are good, it is becoming increasingly apparent they do not know how to read budget. That's what it says. They do not know how to read budget or have any realistic understanding of what it takes for a county government to provide local services. Now, first of all, to say that no candidates were mentioned when the whole press conference was about this ad, to hold up the pictures, the photographs of the candidates, and to have all of these officials up there talking about this, in their opinion, misleading ad, and then for the press release to mention them by name in the first sentence, and to say that they're passing out misinformation that's confusing the public, fellas,
They have named, and they have said by name, and they have showed pictures of the individuals. So if they don't recall discussing the candidates, or they don't recall speaking or hearing the name of any candidates,
right,
we could just call that selective memory and selective hearing.
That's a really good point, because that's what I said to Sheriff Gil Gilbertson. Mm-hmm. Before the press conference started, I had been to several meetings to try to help get the word out about what this new sheriff intended to do in the county. I'm standing out in the hallway with Gil Gilbertson before this. I was Gil Gilbertson's supporter. I liked his attitude about, I'll deal with whatever you give me. I said, it's going to be a thankless task, but good for you for doing that. I went and took him out into the hallway and I said, Gil, you and I have talked about this before. I think that these characters are trying to get on your coattails and use your good reputation, which he had at that moment, your good reputation to influence others, the voters, about what to do. I really seriously suggest that you get out of this press conference. I mean, I know that you dedicate yourself to being here, but I'm going to suggest to you at some point in this press conference early on, you reach down, you touch your beeper, and you say, oh, I got to go, and get out of here. Mm-hmm. Because this has all of the earmarks of something that's going to end up being a disaster. Don't do this. Well, he really didn't like that. I mean, I can talk to him. I could at the moment, but well, no, I'm just here for informational purposes. And they're bashing candidates. It's a bad precedent to begin with, and you're going in there and there's a sheriff's levy up, and if you end up talking about the sheriff's levy, that's just dancing right on the edge of okay, and here you are, and what if one of them wins or two of them win, where are you going to be? Don't, just get out, because Dave Toller is dragging you into something, and I think it's a big mistake. Well, he didn't do that.
He stuck around.
He stayed in for the entire thing.
So, do I hear some sympathy on your part? A little bit of sympathy?
Well, I'll tell you why I don't have any anymore.
Sure.
I started out that way.
Okay, sure.
All right. Let's suppose that you're a law enforcement official and you've arrested somebody. Shots were fired, you've arrested somebody. And many times these days, it might be 2 years before the thing comes to some kind of trial. And when they finally call you in, so many things have happened in the meantime. You need to refresh your memory. It's absolutely essential. Did you shoot one time or did you shoot 5 times? And before you hold up your hand and swear on that Bible and be the law enforcement official that's going to be honest in front of God and everybody, you better be sure about your facts. So when the Secretary of State's office, this is important, asks our head law enforcement official, did you hear any candidates mentioned? And did anyone make any references to a ballot measure? And you, as the sheriff, whether you love the guy or don't, and you say, no, I didn't say anything about, what was his exact words? He said, it was never my intention, okay, or desire to address a ballot measure, nor do I believe I did. And he also said, I personally do not recall discussing a candidate. Added in with the others, they're basically saying no candidates were referenced. But the big one for Gil is, did he talk about a ballot measure? Now, you can watch the tape because it's what the Secretary of State's office used to make their determination about whether electioneering was happening. But it was why they were a bit hot and upset with the statements they got from Josephine County officials, because Gil Gilbertson absolutely did mention Channel 12, I think it was Channel 12, asked him 3 times, because they're trying to get a story. Do you feel, I'm not going to get the quote exactly right, but you can watch it for yourself. Do you feel, Sheriff Gilbertson, that this ad will adversely affect the passage of this ballot measure? And Gil started with, well, in 1776, kind of, no, that's not the question I'm asking you. Do you feel that this ad put in by these 2 candidates for commissioner will adversely affect the passage of this levy for this amount of money for the sheriff? Well, Lincoln freed the... No. Do you think it... Yes, it will adversely affect it. It can adversely affect it. Confuses people. Now he said it. So afterwards, once I read what he had said to the Secretary of State's office, I knew that it was false. And I went to Gil, personally, privately, not in public. And I said, Gil, you can look at the tape, and there's an opportunity for you to refresh your memory, similar to, did I shoot once, did I shoot 5 times? This is official testimony that you've given to the Secretary of State's office. You can amend that and say, since I've reviewed, and he should have done it ahead of time, since I reviewed my statements, I want to amend them by saying, yes, I did, although it was never my intention to do so, and I had to be sort of badgered into it by being asked 3 times, and I finally did say my opinion. He could do that.
They twisted my arm and...
Oh, many things.
Pulled my hair.
So now here's the important turning point for anybody that's an advocate of law and order, which I am, or a personal friend of Gil Gilbertson, or feels that he ought to be reelected or whatever. Gil's answer was, I will not be reviewing that tape.
So did they know that the Secretary of State's office was reviewing your tape at the time? Did they even have the heads up? Or was this kind of like a, oops, I didn't know they were going to look at the tape?
I don't know. I don't know if everybody knew. I made it generally known in public meetings that was happening, but I can't tell if any individual person had done so.
Or if they even believed you or took it with a grain of salt or any of the above.
I suppose that's possible, but the point is, well, they knew that I was there videotaping because that was really obvious that I was there.
Right.
And so they knew there was videotape evidence of what had happened. Here's my point. Whether it's the sheriff, if the sheriff is going to make a statement to the Secretary of State's office, and he gets it wrong. Mm-hmm. First of all, I think it's important for him to review the evidence. I know I'm repeating myself. Review the evidence before making an official statement as a law enforcement officer, head law enforcement
because
officer.
He needs to be honest all the time.
Yes.
We need to know that if a criminal or something happens, that our sheriff or one of our sheriff deputies is called into question, we need to know that they are on the side of truth, and they're on the side of law, and they're on the side of order, and not just covering their hiney.
But the most important thing is that afterwards, when I told him, Gil, that's not the way that it happened. You really should take a look at the tape. He said he will not be reviewing that tape. Now, what does that say? What does that say?
It says he doesn't care. He doesn't care what the truth is. That's what it says.
Yes, it's difficult to back up and say, okay, I made an error. But it's absolutely essential from our elected officials, and especially from our law enforcement official. And I suppose that there are people, well, that's really not anything. No, wait a minute. No, that's something, all right.
That's character.
It is.
It's character. Because, Dale, you make mistakes.
Everybody does.
I make mistakes.
I thought I made a mistake once, but I was wrong.
Yeah, I know. I make mistakes. We expect, and we talk a lot about the mistakes that our county government, specifically right now, is making. And that's not the judgment. We're not saying people need to be perfect. What we're saying is we need to feel like they're doing the best job that they can to be the best representatives that they promised that they would be. And what we're encountering is a lot of covering up of bad behavior, and they need to just come clean and say, you know what, I screwed up. I think I would be so thrilled if we had politicians these days say, you know what, you're right, I screwed up. I'll try and do better. Let me get back to work and see what I can do to rectify it, and I promise never to make that mistake again.
There's so many ways that this could have been done. You could have said, look, that was quite a while back. Well, actually, when he made this statement, okay, the actual press conference happened on October 22nd, and he made the statement April 2nd. So what is that? It was like 6 months later. And he could have said, hey, I'm a busy guy, and I may not always get everything right. But, now that I've had a chance to look at the video, mm-hmm. I have to admit, yes, indeed, I was asked that question 3 times. I finally did answer it. Yeah, maybe I shouldn't have, or, oh, no, I'm proud to answer it, or whatever. And just say, well, look, I just made a misstatement.
What if he said, I mentioned them, I referenced them, I mentioned and I referenced the ballot measure, but you know what? I'm really mad. I'm really mad because I believe this county deserves better. What if he went that direction? What if he said, we really do need sheriff's coverage, and this is what I believe in, and you may not agree with me, and you may not agree with my tactics, but I'm passionate, and it's worth it to me to make this risk for our county and the safety of our
I feel that way. I am in agreement with that point of view.
So he didn't have to back out of it and say he didn't agree with it. He just kind of walked that fence and said he went there to basically say that he's upset about this ad and that he believes we need more county coverage.
He was the co-sponsor of the press conference.
But then he essentially backed out and said, no, I really didn't say that, which made it very ineffective and made it lying.
Well, yes. I think that you're right.
And probably what he really felt was, dang it, this makes me mad.
And I voted for it, so I'm actually on his side on this. The thing is, though, if somebody comes to you and they said, look, bud, you kind of blew this because I've got it on tape that you actually did that. That's not the way I remember. Well, take a look at the tape. No, I'm not going to look at the tape. What?
Yeah.
What do you mean, no, you're not going to look at the tape? What kind of law enforcement official says that?
Yeah, he either did it or he didn't, and he just needs to be clear about what his intentions were. I think we know what his intentions were. So just have a spine and stand up and say it. For goodness sakes, you're the sheriff, and a lot of people are going to admire you for standing up in what you believe in and wanting to protect the county.
It's too late now because we've given him a lot of time to do this, and he's been really, really touchy and very upset with me and ready to bite nails because I pointed out to him that there's a way that you can confirm what you said or you didn't say. And keep in mind now, the official press release, it was just one of the press conference, mentions Jack Brown and Sandy Casanelli by name and accuses them of passing out misinformation to the public that's confusing the public. Well, there's no way that anyone can honestly say to the Secretary of State's office, well, no candidates were referenced. Well, that wasn't the purpose of the press conference. Come on, you guys. That's false.
Well, again, we have proof on video.
Yeah, and on paper.
In writing, in their own words.
In their own words.
Pictures. Mm-hmm. We have press that was there, news channel that were there. We have a Secretary of State that's involved in this. Here we have true, solid evidence that our elected officials are lying. Their character is showing through, and when questioned about it, they won't come clean.
I think he got sucked into it by Dave Toller, but I'm disappointed that afterwards, when the sheriff had a chance to set the record straight and be an honest, straight guy that always tells us the truth, that he turned down the opportunity. I mean, he didn't need to get a DVD from me. He can just go online and look at him for himself. At least look at the tape. Does he not remember saying that? Boy, I guess that's just between him and God. I have no idea of whether he really thinks that he didn't say anything, but to turn down the opportunity to check to see if you're right or not when someone's coming to you and saying, look, buddy, I videotaped it, and that's exactly what you said. I just looked at it the day before.
I have to tell you, Dale, if the Secretary of State's office called me for an official statement, I would sure say, you know what? Let me review my information and I'll get back to you.
Absolutely.
I would be terrified, but that's me. And apparently they aren't. And obviously, as I've been proven to over and over again, they're not afraid of anybody.
They don't need to tell the truth.
They don't. It doesn't matter because they're not. There's no punishment. There's not even a slap on the back of the hand. There is no punishment for lying in this county.
No, as a matter of fact, there's no. I asked the secretary, who wouldn't ask the Secretary of State's office? I said, no, wait a minute. You guys are always laughing about us up north. Our country cousins, they marry each other, and there's something wrong with them, and they're just as southern yokels, and they can never think their way out of a paper bag. I said, okay, we're asking you for help. Here are these fellows, and you know that they've not told you the truth. They said, well, it's pretty obvious from looking at the videotape. So it's obvious that they did that. I said, but aren't there any laws about the sheriff and and legal counsel and a county commissioner and a treasurer and an assessor for some reason? Isn't there any law against them lying to the Secretary of State during an official investigation? No. Well, what kind of law is this?
Well, maybe that's the next law we need to send to Salem.
Brother.
We need to send some
This
law.
is not made up. It's on paper.
We need to talk to our representatives about passing a law that says if an elected official lies to the Secretary of State or lies to the public, that they should be able to be prosecuted. I don't know what else to do because I go to county commissioners meeting, not lots of them, but it seems like the ones I show up at, they refuse to answer questions. Commissioners are making statements to papers that they can't back up or prove. They're just randomly just throwing numbers out and statistics and figures, and they've got nothing behind it. It's garbage. I had somebody say to me, and this gentleman used to be a comedian, and his delivery was fabulous. He said 85% of the time statistics are made up on the spot.
There's lies, damn lies, and statistics.
And I gotta tell you, I am learning that with our county commissioners, statistics and numbers are made up on the spot, and there's nothing real behind them.
Right.
And when you ask them specifically, show me the numbers, you said this figure. Now show me where you came up with it. They say we don't have to, in so many words.
But the truth is,
They don't
have to.
They don't have to. And that is what is so incredibly infuriating about this entire process. That we have officials, really, they are the ones that are confusing the public. They're the ones putting out the misinformation, and they're abusing their positions.
I don't know whether the information that was in this ad is 100% correct, whether there are any mistakes in it, whether it was a perfect comparison. I don't know. What I don't like, and we started this way, is the idea that you're running for an office and then your county government decides to get 5 officials together, elected officials, sit in an official room in the county courthouse and bash you as candidates by saying your misinformation, read lies, is confusing the public, misleading the public, and then you mention them by name and then be coy about it. Well, I don't recall mentioning their names. Come on. Just be straightforward and be honest. Look, there are going to be people who say, these county commissioners, we've given them the power to do certain things with our county government and spend a lot of money. And it's also true that we've given the county sheriff the power to do a number of things that affect human lives directly. If we're going to give them the power, we expect that they're going to be honest. And lots of people could say, hey, well, wait a minute. You might say anything you want to about Dave Toller, but that sheriff's putting his life on the line. All those brave people who protect us are doing that. That's true. And I appreciate the fact that they're doing it. I really do. I voted for extra money. But I'm going to insist, and I believe there are other people who should, that when we have a person in that position of responsibility in charge of the law, that they personally obey the law.
What a concept.
We've just passed Antelope Freeway.